This is Centered, where faith meets everyday life. Our hope is to invite you into a better story, a story where you are made new through Jesus, living with God-given purpose, and experiencing peace, joy, and freedom. Together, we'll explore what it means to keep Jesus at the center of where we live, work, and play, bringing beauty, meaning, and renewal to every part of our lives. We'd like to invite you to a few family-friendly opportunities we have coming up. Join us for our Good Friday services on April 3rd at 7 p.m., where we will prepare our hearts for Easter as we reflect on Jesus' sacrifice. Then join us again on April 5th at 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. for our Easter services and celebration. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
Hello, everyone, and I mean everyone. Welcome to the Center Podcast. My name is Ben.
If you're someone,
this is for you.
This is for you.
This
You're welcome.
is for you.
You are welcome here.
Yes. My name is Ben, and I'm joined by
David.
And this is not the combo that did last week's podcast. Megan.
No, Megan debuted on she's our producer back there.
Yes.
And she
We put her back in the back.
Yeah.
She did so terrible that you threw her in the
threw
back.
her back in the back. No, okay, I'm going to call her out right now.
Yes. If you didn't, I would.
You were going to do it.
I was totally going to do
I reprimanded her this morning because she didn't put any clips of our convo on social this week.
Yeah.
And I think because she's like shy or
No,
something.
it's even worse than that. She did put clips of your conversation, but you're the only one that is seen. And then you can hear a female in the background going, uh-huh, yeah, But you never see her face.
I didn't even see that. So I told her, I said, if there's not a clip of her dropping some brilliance on our pod this week, that she was going to have a price to pay.
Yeah, that legitimately was my only beef with
her.
the podcast because, and I haven't talked to her about this at all. But
but you have to do this every week because typically you cut the clips, and
I've been doing it. I've now
you were
passed
telling
it
me
along
today.
to
You were
Megan.
telling me today that you didn't like doing that.
I don't like having to pick the clips because I understand, like, we're wanting to show people that it's a conversation.
Yeah.
So I always tried to pick clips that at least most of the clips had both of us
Went back and
interacting.
forth.
Yeah, some back and forth. But it is hard to pick clips of yourself speaking.
I can sympathize.
I'll
with
acknowledge that for her. But you know what? I still did it. Yeah. Well,
Megan.
But I'm back, and to quote you, I am going to satisfy the deepest yearnings of people's hearts. You said something about people will be yearning for me. I'm like, that's probably a little too generous.
I said absence makes the heart grow fonder, I think.
I heard the word yearning. Someone said yearning. Maybe.
I always say I didn't say that, and then you pull out some transcript somewhere.
Don't make me
saying the thing that I said I didn't say. So.
People do it for me. They send it to me. They're like, "Oh no, he did here."
That just shows how spontaneous I am in my speaking.
Yes, we love the spontaneity.
Yeah.
That's what makes it a good podcast.
But it makes me a fool sometimes.
Occasionally.
It makes me a fool sometimes.
I never said that. Roll the tape.
Roll the tape back. No, that's exactly what you said.
Okay, but I wanted to say, I thought this was one of the things you guys talked about, which was really interesting to me, was that people are looking for the sacred, and you had like a little conversation about that. And I thought that was interesting simply because this week I was on a kind of restful Sabbath-like week, and I started reading the book Sacred Rhythms by Ruth Haley Barton.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh, I'm pursuing the sacred as you're
talking about
the sacred.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's something really, really spot on with I think we're looking for more.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think some of the maybe I would say, downfall of Western evangelicalism is, man, we feel like we have to explain away everything. Like
demystify everything.
Yeah, we demystify everything. And I actually think that does our faith a disservice, man. Like, I think there's just some beauty in the mystery of God. And if we, I think if we intentionally organized our churches around capturing the mystery of God, I think that would serve the body of Christ better.
If God was such that I could understand him completely,
explain him perfectly,
put him in like a nice little box, like how small is that?
Oh
God?
Gosh, yeah. But we do it all the time.
Absolutely. I'm not saying I don't.
You always hear me say this is my gripe about systematic theology versus biblical theology.
Oh, and I've been griping before I even knew you. I'm like, dude, this is so incomplete. Like, but I understand the intent.
Totally. Yeah, it's not like evil. It's just our attempt to try to know God, and I do think that he has given us ways to know him. But I think humility comes in when we understand that there's limitations in our knowing. Like he needs to be mysterious and awe-inspiring.
That invites awe. Yes. Yeah. And so, anyways, great job, Megan. I can't wait to see the clip of you on social.
I know. Can't wait.
I'm so excited.
Can't wait. Should we give a deadline? Like Tuesday, Wednesday?
Well, I mean, it's 2:16. What do you think? Like 2:30?
Okay, perfect. I know she's got her laptop back there.
Her laptop. She could be doing. She's multitasking anyways.
She did great. And I honestly know. I joked with her, but one of the reasons that we had her on wasn't just because you were gone, but because we legitimately are excited about her voice and the way she understands the church and faith and what she brings to the table. So super excited about that.
Yes, and I really liked Shabbat is home.
Isn't that cool?
I thought that whole like practice was really cool, and just with her kids. I've never been good at that. So good job, Megan.
I've gone through stints. I'm not good at like doing it for long periods of time. I'm more short spurts. That's kind of I'm a sprinter. Yeah. I'm not a long distance.
You don't look like a distance runner.
I don't even look like a sprinter. So.
If you did, you wouldn't say, I might look like I have $10,000 strapped to my stomach, but I don't.
Oh, man.
That was funny. Hey, it seems like I wasn't there.
Yeah.
It seems like we had a great Sunday.
It was.
And I did go back and listen. I'm not doing this cold, guys. That would be
You came to church?
traumatic.
You came to church online?
I came to church online at 9 p.m. last night.
Oh, nice.
And just kind of logged in, checked it out. But from what I hear from the tech team, there were about a dozen slides that you didn't get to, which means there is stuff on the cutting room floor.
The cutting room floor. Welcome to the cutting room floor, where David has to backtrack in order to actually finish his message. No, I like, one of the things we try to do is be sensitive to the Holy Spirit. And sometimes the Lord has us, when we communicate, just stay someplace. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we can do all the planning in the world, but then you feel what the Spirit's up to in the room. And so I do feel like we got to the things that we needed to get to on Sunday morning. But man, one of the things that I really didn't have time to get to, but I love, is connecting some of our misconceptions about how we grow. And we read things and we take them out of context and don't understand them. And one of the things is in Romans 12, verses 1 and 2. It's a super popular verse, but I'm going to explain it just for a moment because I didn't get to really tackle it in there. But there's this, for 11 chapters, Paul talks about the human condition, like how, like the devastating effects of sin on the human heart, and he talks about Jesus's intervention and his life and death and the good news about who he is, and he's like goes through almost this like beautiful narrative about sin and salvation. And that's basically the first 11 chapters, and it's absolutely breathtaking when you dive into it and really understand. And then chapter 12 in the book of Romans is basically a turning point that says, okay, now in light of that, how do we live that out? Like how ought we respond as God's people in that? And really, that's what the invitation of the gospel is, not just to believe something, but to live in a way, in a power and a presence and a reality and identity into the way of Jesus Christ. And how do we organize our lives around that? And so he says this coming out, and he says, therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy. And I love that he starts there, because all of our response, like all of the invitation of Jesus in our lives is an invitation to respond to God's kindness towards us, his mercy,
When he
his
just
grace,
spent 11 chapters explaining it.
Explaining what it is.
What the mercy of God looks like.
Yeah. And I think sometimes I cannot iterate how important that concept is that our starting place with God is an invitation to like understand how merciful he is towards us. That we can't like out-sin him, we can't outpace him in failure and mess ups and mistakes. Like his mercy is Ephesians 2, Paul actually connects God's love and his mercy together when he's like, according to God's love, being rich in mercy, and then he goes on to that thing. And so he connects God's love and mercy together. And because of God's loving mercy towards us, like it's offering a response. And so this isn't like an invitation of like guilt or shame or try harder. It's legitimately an invitation of saying, hey, you can try because God is merciful.
Right.
Like you can try and fail, and it's okay because God's merciful.
Right. And I think it's important that you connected love there, because as you were talking, I was thinking like, we love because he first loved us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's because of his loving kindness, his mercy towards us, which is an expression of his love, that we even can begin to live into this.
Yeah. And then he goes on to say, in view of God's mercy, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. And in our modern vernacular, all of that sounds almost like oppressive or restrictive. Maybe
perfect.
Not oppressive. Yeah. That's what it feels like it's saying.
Yeah.
And it's actually not. It's actually an identity statement. Like if we really understood what was required for a sacrifice to be accepted by God, and Paul is saying because God is merciful, we now can live as if we are that sacrifice. What he's actually making is an identity statement saying you're clean and God's pleased with you. You don't have to bring anything else to the table. Like you're clean, God's pleased with you. You're clean and God's pleased with you. And it's one of the most beautiful identity statements and shifts in our perspective about God's disposition towards us that sounds almost like restrictive and oppressive, but it's not. It's breathtaking that Paul is saying God's loving kindness and mercy is allowing you to take a step forward in life. And you have to take that step forward knowing like this isn't about proving yourself to God.
I think you touched on it this week. Maybe it was the previous week. But just like, what is holiness?
Yeah.
Like, it's not what we think it is. We tend to view holiness as like God's perfection.
Or moralism.
And it's like, no, it's actually being set apart with a purpose. And so, like, that's really just, it's not saying get your life together and live perfectly for God. It's actually saying, like, you are worthy of a sacrifice. You're clean, an unblemished animal. You are clean. So live set apart, like live in such a way that proclaims the goodness and glory of God. Like, very different.
And what he's saying is true and proper worship is actually viewing yourself the way God views you. I want you to think about that.
Dude.
So that's legitimately, literally what Paul is saying here is like, you think it's about how you look on the outside or the things that you do or the things that you bring to the table. But true and proper worship is when we begin to recognize how God sees us, and that begins to shape our identity in the way that we live.
And how the way God sees us, none of that comes from us.
None of it. It's all bestowed on
His
us.
righteousness given to us. Yeah.
So it's a major shift. And the first century audience would have recognized all that. So this would have been radical to them. Like, we don't understand it because we're so far removed from it.
We don't sacrificial system.
Totally. We didn't. Yeah, we're not in that. And so when they heard that, they would have like went back and been like, dude, you're messing with like the biggest part of our identity as God's people was a sacrificial system.
Why do you think the Pharisees got so worked up?
Yep. When Jesus
blasphemy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. When Jesus started saying stuff like, I'm the sacrifice and I'm the temple and I'm the eat my flesh
could be
and
the
my
sacrifice.
blood. Yeah, totally. That's like, wow, it's huge. But then he throws in a warning, and I love this warning here. He says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, which is like, the world wants to rob us of our identity as those who have been mercied and those who are now clean. So he's like, hey, here's actually who you are, but the world's gonna want to try to like mold you into its image. Like I'm molding you into my image, and I made you in my image, but the world's gonna try to conform your image. And he says this. He says, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, which this world has a pattern that is not God's pattern. Yeah. But be transformed, and this is where we get tripped up. It says by the renewing of our mind. And it's interesting because I don't know why I took off my hat, maybe to expose my mind. In the ancient world, they didn't have, like, the mind wasn't the same thing as the mind is today. They didn't have a word actually for brain. So they didn't even have that concept like going on in the first century. And so mind and heart are interchangeable.
Right.
And the real term that is rooted in both of those legitimately means like the command center of our lives, like
your CPU, man.
Yeah, it's like your CPU. It's like the central thing that like motivates you. And so what it's not asking us to do is just to get a bunch more information. Read some more books, go to some more Bible studies, go somewhere. What it's saying is like, you need a new operating system on your CPU because it's the way that you think and feel is driving the decisions you make in the life that you live. And what he's inviting us into is recognizing that the command center of our lives needs to be changed, which we call that in our culture more our heart.
Right.
Like it's the kind of like the affections of our lives, the things that we love, the things that inspire us, the things that we're impassioned about. Like those are the things that actually drive us. And it doesn't matter if it's sports or if it's food or if it really doesn't matter, like clothes, aesthetics. Like we all have certain things that we're passionate about that determine the trajectories of our lives. How many hours I'm going to work at work, how many, how much I'm going to fill out my schedule, all of that controls us. And what Paul is asking us to do is to be aware that if we pattern our lives after the world, right, it's going to do harm to us. We're not going to be able to discern God's will for our lives. But if we rethink how we pattern our lives or what motivates our hearts, we'll actually be able to tap into God's design. And that's what it says. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And what I didn't get to communicate this weekend was that like God has a good, pleasing, and perfect will for us. And it's not impossible for us to discern.
How many people need to hear that?
Whew. Yeah. I need to. Like, I needed to this week. Like, and all the time, I settle for less. I settle for things, and I convince myself that there isn't a way for me to really know what God's will is for my life, His pleasing will, what pleases Him. Yeah. And it's like I do all these like mental games, and
if God wanted that for me, X.
Yeah.
It's like a formula.
Right.
We're just like, well, if God wanted me to have this, I would have it. Or, I wouldn't. Why do I want this thing that I shouldn't have? Like, we go through all these mental hurdles.
And then we move down to Paul's theology on transformation, like how transformation takes place. And we get to that 1 Corinthians passage that talks about, being changed from one degree of glory to the next by beholding Christ. And that idea of beholding, and I didn't get a lot of time to unpack what that means, but there is a lot to this idea of Jesus capturing both our heart and imagination. And that's what I wanted, not just our thinking, right? Not just our belief, but there is this world of heart and imagination that I don't think the church talks about a lot, that like we are what we love. And when Christ captures our love, but it's not just our love, it's also our imagination, which I'll talk to you about the end, which is the solution to kind of touch into these two things. When Christ can capture our heart and our imaginations, we will start to see Him more and start patterning our lives more and more after Him. And some of that is through knowledge.
Sure.
Some of it's through practices, behaving certain ways. Like those are things, but the real distinction is you can gain knowledge and adopt practices without it ever captivating your heart and imagination. And so the key is learning how to gain knowledge and adopt practices in a way that filters down to your heart. Like that's like the key ingredient in those two things. It's not that I'm saying we don't learn and we don't behave. Right. You know what I mean? That's not the point of it at all. But there is oftentimes a missing ingredient that's like the trifecta of like spiritual change and maturation, like in our lives.
Well, you did talk about towards the end of the message, as you were kind of wrapping things up, the idea that you can do all the right things, but it never get to the heart.
Yeah.
So this feels to me like kind of the, instead of the negative angle, it's like the positive angle, like that we need to adopt practices or learning or whatever, but all with that in mind.
Right.
That it would draw us near to the heart of God, that it would, awaken our imagination to what's possible with God and what He's trying to do in me, through me, and in the world around me.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jesus said it like this. He's like, you should have, they were arguing about the law. He said, you should have kept the former without neglecting the very thing that you're talking about, right? That they're not at odds with one another, but they're meant to like work in conjunction. You should have kept the law while also having a heart for the poor. Loving the poor, he's talking about heart issues, and he's talking about religious things, like in the difference between those two things. And so, I think to be honest, that was kind of like the biggest missing piece in my sermon that I didn't have a lot of time to unpack. I mean, obviously I just took 20 minutes, to unpack that, which we didn't have.
60-minute sermon.
Yeah. So we got that. But then the very end, which you'll see this in some of the discussion guide for our life groups, there is a practice that I think can help us tune into this. And I had this cool slide up that AI made for me. But it was this idea of the tension between gratitude and groaning. And one of the things that we can practice that actually attaches to our hearts are these two things, gratitude and groaning. And gratitude is legitimately, like the Bible says, to be thankful, give thanksgiving. Like the Bible promotes gratitude almost more than any other practice. And we've already learned through science that gratitude actually rewires your brain,
right,
and helps parts of your brains that have gone dark over time because of trauma, because of whatever reason. Gratitude actually lights those areas of your brain back up.
It's literally the antidote to depression, anxiety, like all of these negative emotions that are just rampant in our society.
Totally. Yeah, because of things like social media, and COVID,
we're
and all that.
bombarded.
Yeah, all those other things. Yeah, it's like we're experiencing a lot of that. And so like practicing gratitude, what it does is it pushes back against entitlement. So instead of thinking about what I don't have or what I do deserve or what I should have, you spend time thinking about the ways in which God has blessed you, even if things are hard.
Yeah.
You know, like, man, maybe you lost a spouse. You know what I mean? And it's like, and that consumes you. What if you moved towards the time that God did give you with your spouse and you started remembering and being thankful for those moments and those times? It just, it rewires your thinking.
Well, and even like I was just thinking, man, to be able to look at it through the lens of mercy and grace. Like I didn't deserve that. Like, because, you know, what you talked about is like pushing against entitlement, right? Like to me, the ultimate form of pushing against entitlement isn't just naming the things that are good or blessings in our lives, but it's actually also recognizing how I don't deserve those things, but God has given me those things anyways.
Or even not getting the things you do deserve. Like, dude, I have a season where I was like, I told us in the lead meeting, I watched the Red Hot Chili Peppers documentary, which, oh my gosh, was amazing. But I'm watching their life, and I grew up a non-Christian in the party scene, like, and I'm watching some of the things, the tragedies they experienced because of that. And I literally had a moment where I was like, I should have experienced that. Like I deserved to what, you know, X, Y, and Z. And I was like, thank you, God, that you, I don't know what, you know, I don't know like the theology behind all of that, but I had gratitude that my life didn't end up there. Like it was just a moment, but that's kind of that whole, whole idea.
But that's powerful.
It is.
Like, because you know, it's like, hey, man, God, I'm thankful for whatever, my car, my house, my whatever.
Yeah.
But you could very easily go, and I earned all those things.
Yeah.
Because I worked hard, because I did X, Y, and Z.
Thanks God for blessing me. I know I'm your favorite.
Yeah. Thanks God for blessing me with a great mind to be fiscally responsible. And like, that's one thing. But it's like, no, thank you, God, that you have brought me here, that, you know, I have whatever, this thing that I actually know what I wanted in my heart. And you didn't give me that.
Yeah.
You gave me this thing that I didn't think I'd want, but is so much better.
So thankful. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's so good. And then the second piece is just that the groaning piece. And groaning is pushes back against complaining. And there's a difference. And complaining is all about your preference. And groaning is about aligning yourself with God's promises. And where we can recognize what we're longing for and the way things aren't supposed to be, and we can recognize what God promises will be. And Paul also uses this language in Romans where the earth groans and our spirit groans and even our flesh groans. Like we groan with God. And when we groan, what we begin to do is we begin to align ourselves with what God desires. Right? Because we call what's broken, broken. We don't ignore it. We don't bury ourselves in the sand.
Right.
We call broken what's broken, but we do it in a way that aligns ourselves with what God wants it to be like, what it should have been like, and what it's going to be like when the promise is fulfilled, you know, fully. And so there's a subtle difference between groaning and complaining. And,
so if I don't like the worship music,
right? You hear that every now and then,
or the sermon series,
or, totally.
You know, or this like doctrinal.
We do that in church a lot, but I'm even thinking like a coworker, right? Like they are annoying and they have this thing. You got some of those, and you're like, man, instead of like complaining about how they're acting and how they're making your life, like what if we groan with God's heart for that coworker?
Yeah.
Like something's going on, and we know that God's design is not bitterness or know-it-allness or whatever the thing is that it's annoying the mess out of you about that person. What if we joined God in groaning for that person to become whole?
Right. And I'm really good at like explaining that to like my kids or but to actually practice it myself is harder. You know, because this person grates on me for whatever. And it's all like preference and, whatever, like just relational dynamics. But the reality is, when somebody is messing with one of my kids, less so now they're teenagers, but when they were younger, especially, like first thing I would ask them, what's their home life?
Yeah, totally.
And they're like, oh, well,
everything.
Yeah, his, dad's in jail, whatever, lives with grandparents. I don't really know, but I know he lives with his grandparents. I'm like, that's pain. That's, like
something.
And so like we should have compassion. Like it still sucks.
Yeah.
The way that they're treating you.
Groan and hurt.
Yes. But we should have compassion for that person. And so like easy to consider in a podcast, or in, in teaching your children, but so much harder to do as a person practicing our faith.
Yeah. And I have some practical tips for us at the end. So when we talk about the in real life, how do we actually do that in a way that is helpful?
Good. I'm gonna write those down.
Me too.
All right. I think it's time to have a little fun.
Okay.
Just for funsies.
Just for funsies.
Okay. You opened with a story about being in Haiti and wanting a candy bar. And so you went to a real seedy part of town.
Shady.
And so I would love to just throw shade at you, but it actually reminded me of a time I was in a foreign country. I was in Honduras, and I was on one of those vision trips with Compassion International, and we were told in no uncertain terms, don't go anywhere without either the group or one of your guides. Like I can't remember the city right now, it's escaped me, but I know that it was the number 5 murder capital in Central America.
Yeah.
I did Google it and not tell my wife until I got back. But so they're like, don't do it. I was like, heard. You know what sounds really fun though? Like going to get a haircut. And I'd never had like a straight razor
Totally. That
shave.
is fun to do.
And I was like, dude, I'm going to do that in Honduras. It'll be my first time ever doing it. Great. So what do? I get the guide? No. I don't get the guide. I just go. I find a barber. I go. I'm on my own. Everything's going great. The barber's so cool. He's super nice, friendly. He doesn't really speak English, but we're doing okay.
Yeah.
Haircut looks great. I'm feeling good. And then he does the straight razor thing. He puts a warm towel over my eyes.
Yeah.
And then he grabs the razor, and I'm like, all of a sudden it hit me like, I'm in the number 5 murder capital of the world. I can't see. He just grabbed a razor. He's going towards my throat.
And take my wallet.
And, by the way, the door opens. And I can't see. And I'm like looking, because my eyes are covered. I'm trying to use my peripheral to just see like how many feet are there? Like what's going on?
What am I into?
Nothing happened. But I just had that moment of panic where I was like, what am I doing?
Like, that could have been a perfect Rob scenario.
Yeah, dude, slit my throat, grab my wallet, it's over.
Yeah, he knows you have money, right?
Like,
you came.
So I can't throw shade. I mean, I can, but it'd be foolish.
Oh,
but it did make me think.
You could throw shade because I have probably like 50 of those stories.
Well, you've been international more than me. Give me more time, and I could catch up. I'm sure. Because like you said, the heart wants what the heart wants. It's not more information that we need. It's like actually understanding our longings. So I thought we should just play a little game called Worth the Risk.
Oh, okay.
So I'll pop out a couple scenarios. We'll decide. Is
the
it
answer's
worth
always yes.
The risk. You're 7.
Again,
the Enneagram
that's my
7.
Mind. That's my mind.
Like,
yes. In the moment, yes.
That sounds
After the
great.
Moment, no. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see if we get rational David or
I can rationalize.
This will be interesting. So scenario 1, trying street tacos from a cart that looks questionable, but there's a line of locals.
1,000 times over, yes.
I agree. That's
1,000 times over.
Yeah. What's the worst that could
Did you know
happen?
how
A
many times
parasite?
I've had food poisoning in my life? Like, legitimately.
Montezuma's
dude.
Revenge?
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh, my gosh. No problem.
Yeah, totally
Worth it.
Yes.
Worth it.
We agree. Getting on a ride at a traveling carnival that looks like it was assembled this morning.
Been there, done that in Nicaragua, and legitimately get up on this like weird it was like an octopus thing that's going over, and looked over, and the dude that had put it together was literally passed out on the side with a tequila bottle sitting next to him.
Wrench in one hand,
A wrench and yeah. It was legitimately, and I had a group of kids from an orphanage come with me to this Nicaraguan carnival. Yeah, but you thought you were going to die, which apparently makes the ride so much better when you feel like you're going to die at any moment.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
The adrenaline is
adrenaline's off
the charts.
Oh, man. I would say not worth it. Only two. I have two bad experiences. One is like I've ridden the wooden roller coaster at Elitch's. That literally hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Like it literally is like shaking your body, and that did not feel
good. The Screaming Eagle?
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I have no idea what it's called. It's called the Death Machine. It's terrible. Don't ride it. But the second reason is I went to one of those carnivals in a park, and I'm like 19 years old, go with a group of friends, and everything's looking good. And this has nothing to do with the ricketiness of it but we get on the one, you stand up and it just spins, and then it starts to like go up, and so you're spinning vertical.
Yeah.
Great. I had a great time. I love rides. I didn't have any I'm dizzy, but everyone's dizzy.
Yeah.
No issues. Except I walk off the ride, and what do I see? Some like 8-year-old throwing up in my shoe. For some reason they made you take your shoes off.
Yeah, and the kid picked your shoe.
My shoe to just yak in. I'm like, great.
So what did you do?
Well, I think I tried to salvage the shoes, but I did not wear them. I just I put them in the trunk of the car and just like, I guess I'm barefoot the rest of this time
funny.
here. It was brutal.
That is brutal.
Okay. 3 words. Gas station sushi.
Ooh.
That one's making you think.
Yeah, that's a big no for me. I'm not, dude. I'm snobby with where my sushi comes from.
Straight from Japan,
yeah,
or else,
yeah, or nothing else. And so, like, my son will eat like grocery store sushi and stuff like that. Like, and even then, like, unless I'm watching the dude behind the counter like put the sushi together, I'm not going to grab a pack of sushi from a grocery store. Like,
yeah,
I'll go fresh.
That.
So yeah,
but gas station,
dude. I can tell you, some of my favorite tamales and burritos were from gas station, like little kitchens in the back of gas stations in Texas, dude. These hole-in-the-wall places. And
hole-in-the-wall places.
Yeah, and I might or might not have gotten food poisoning a dozen times from the same place
and just kept going.
Still went back. It still kept going.
Man.
It was worth it.
So worth the risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just the sushi. Anything else.
That's the thing.
Like,
sushi's scary.
Yeah.
Gas station sushi, to quote the great Randy Jackson, it's a no for me, dog.
It's a no for me, dog.
But I'll do grocery store. And I'm not. Lauren usually buys it because I don't usually patron grocery stores. I think it's like the worst possible place in all of the world to be.
Grocery stores.
Yeah, I hate them. But usually it's like, well, Trader Joe's. I feel like that's pretty safe.
Yeah.
And then, or she'll do like King Soopers, but they have like the sushi station.
Yeah. So they're making it.
So they're making it. I don't think it's just like been sitting in a fridge for 2 days. But gas station. Dude, I don't know how long that's been sitting there.
Totally.
That's no
Although
bueno.
I've had some corn dogs that are probably a couple years old from a gas station.
Oh, I thought you were going to say from like
old.
the youth group fridge here.
No. Oh, yeah.
All right, last one.
Yeah.
Last one. Shout out to Drew Tarwater. Booking the cheapest motel you can find, and the photos look slightly suspicious.
Yes.
You're in.
Oh, dude, yeah. Especially to save a buck.
Dude,
I've stayed in some seedy places, bro. I mean, you would be Yeah, I've stayed in some of the...
In a foreign country, I kind of get it. In America, dude, Drew, he booked this room. It was like $100 in downtown Phoenix.
Yeah.
We get there. There's little black hairs all over the bed.
Oh.
I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. And Drew's like, well, the photos look pretty good on the website. It's like, I love Drew, but he's not allowed to book our hotels anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
He did all right on our last one.
No,
that place was cool.
We didn't let him book that. I booked that one.
I was like, that place was cool.
That was me and Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Back to Sunday's message.
Lent. Back to
Lent. Not navel gazing
No.
lint. Lent. Yes. All right. You opened up with a quote.
Yep.
Well, after the story, of course.
Yeah.
And it was Ashley Knowles. Whatever the heart loves, the will chooses, and then the mind justifies. And that's fascinating because I think and you unpack this a little, like we tend to think it's just the opposite.
Yeah.
We're rational beings. All of our decisions are informed, and but if our loves are shaping our choices that deeply, how responsible are we for our loves? In other words, are our affections something that we control? Or are they something that forms in us over time through habits, culture, trauma, environment, etc.?
Yeah. I would say both, but more shaped than willed. And I think this is something we're really learning about. Like, if you grew up in a home where you always had to walk on eggshells. You never knew what you were going to come home to, which was a little bit of my desire. A huge part of your brain is stuck in fight or flight mode. You're just protection mode. You're doing that.
Right.
And so you can grow up your whole childhood, move out of your house, have zero sense of threat to you. But the moment that a scenario reminds you of that,
triggered.
You're biologically, like you literally have zero control of the way that you feel in that moment. And so we're learning a lot about the way the brain and the body works, and how trauma actually is not just stored memory, but it's stored biology. And how much it impacts like the way that we make decisions and how we feel about something. And and this is a huge part of the healing process is learning how to be healed from trauma. And you can rewire your brain. There are things that you can do
neural pathways.
do. So there's choices you can make. There's ways you can regulate yourself when you recognize that you're starting to have an emotional response to something that you're feeling out of control. So there's ways that you can take control, but not in the way we think. You just can't make yourself feel a certain way. You can't just wake up and be like, I decide I'm going to love this. There has to be things that
I decided
you do.
no trauma today.
No trauma today. Yeah. There's things you have to do in order to not just rewire your brain, but what I call is reorder your heart, reorder your loves.
Okay, no, that's good because it gives me like kind of a natural next question. So when we think about reordering our loves, do we are we removing these loves, or do we need something to be a greater love to actually replace that love?
Yeah. Well, they actually say that you never you never stop loving something. That you only love something more.
Okay,
so that's how that's what that's how they describe it. And I don't know the science behind it. Like, I did read a book that was all about this. And if you James K. Smith has a book called "You Are What You Love," and he talks a lot about this type of idea of how
Christian book or just science.
He is a Christian, and but he is he's a social scientist. So he's like a social psychologist, and he has some fascinating perspectives on this that align with biblical truths that are really good. But yeah, the way that we work is you don't, and this is why the idea of falling out of love is like baloney. Like it doesn't happen. Like what happens is that your love gets redirected or reordered, and you find you love something more in that, and so you don't fall out of love. You actually you replace it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think that's really helpful too, because as we look at our lives and we maybe assign what are some of the lesser things that I love and how do I deal with those things? I think it's important for us to understand it's not just about like, well, I'm going to remove that love. It's like I need to replace it with a greater love, which would be God and the things of God, and how to give those things the proper place.
Yeah. And it's like it's called attachment theory, and it's one of those things is you can't detach from something unless there's something else to attach to. And so that's like this idea of like even kids who find themselves like self-protective all the time, like that's an attachment that they have because of trauma that's in their lives. And until they can attach themselves to something else that's safe, they're never going to detach from their self-protectiveness. So it's not like you're just neutral. There's no such thing as like neutrality in the human condition. Like we're always attaching to something.
Well, I think that's why people rebound.
Right.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
You have this breakup and you don't even really, like the next person's
you don't even want
not
a relationship.
No,
yeah, you just have
but you want to be free from the pain or whatever you're experiencing, the loss of the last relationship. So you go and you have this rebound and it does help people. I mean, it creates a new mess oftentimes, but it does cut.
And that's exactly what that attachment theory is. And you even see it with oftentimes how we deal with sin. Like I knew a guy who was addicted to pornography, and he started getting really into CrossFit and working out. And he and listen, this is a real thing, but he became addicted to like body image and working out. Didn't look at porn anymore, but he had this new addiction that was like controlling his life. So all his money and his time was going towards it. And I remember one time asking him like, hey, what if something happened to you and you couldn't work out anymore? And he made this comment. He's like, oh, I couldn't live.
Whoa.
It's like my life would be over. He's like, I'd probably take my own life.
Wow.
And I was just like, okay. So you've just replaced one addiction for another addiction. And we do that with all kinds of things. And unfortunately, even religion can be that type of attachment.
Sure.
And this is what Jesus is talking about when it's like, look, you're doing all of these things, yet I never knew you. Because we just like, man, I'm tired of drug addiction or addicted to bad relationships, and church is a better, safer place for me to do that. And listen, I agree with that for a time, but if you don't begin to detach yourself from the things of this world and start attaching to Christ himself, you're just going to be involved in another unhealthy attachment, whether it's religion or secularism.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think it's super helpful for us to understand as we try to address our loves.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it also helps us think about our angers. And here's how you can tell when you have an unhealthy attachment to something is when that thing's threatened.
Yeah. I mean, I think we see that in politics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so much anger.
You think?
Yeah, I know.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, what can I say?
I was
genius.
alluding to that, but you just said it out loud.
I'm really smart, guys.
I was trying to be subtle.
I was like, no. Here, in case you missed it.
Politics.
Yeah. Because it's true though. Like
It is true.
There's such anger, and it's like usually it's around someone threatening my ideology or my vision for what like the good life should be, or what America should be, or what my life should look like, and it's being threatened.
Yeah.
And then anger is just,
which means that your attachment is on something that is not safe. And the beauty about attaching ourselves to Jesus is nothing can threaten his existence.
right.
Nothing can take him away. Nothing can defeat him. Nothing could, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so when our attachment is on Christ and truly on him, it brings a overwhelming sense of peace. And here's how Paul said it, like, to live as Christ, to die as gain. Like, you can't take anything from me.
Right.
Nothing's threatened, right? Because my life's already attached to something that is eternal and bigger than all of this.
Yeah. No, and I think like when I just reflect on my own life, I'm like, that's the thing that gives me the most confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like some people would say, oh, you're whatever, confident. Like I've had people say, you're a really confident person. I'm like, I'm actually not. But I have this confidence in who God is and who I am in him, and all of the implications of that, which gives me a strength that is not my own.
Same.
And no one can mess with it.
They can't take that. I've watched God forgive me over and over again. I've watched God provide for me over and over again. I've watched God, make a way where there's not a way over and over and over again. It's like I have zero. I know when I have anxiousness, it's not because of God. It's because my heart is attached to the wrong thing, a lesser God.
Yeah. No, that's where fear and anxiety and like the desire to control really creeps in, is when like my gaze has shifted from Christ to
something else,
some other outcome, or
anything.
Yeah, some other desire.
Which sanctification is. This is starting to give us a bigger picture of what beholding Christ actually means. Because it sounds like such a church. You know what I mean? It's like, what is that? Behold,
like,
I don't even know what that means. But it really is legitimately an ancient way of saying having your attachments to Christ and nothing else. You know?
Yeah, that's helpful. This is good because we're talking as we move towards like sanctification. And kind of like self-awareness, self-absorption, all these types of ideas. You talked about, this is an Augustine type of thing, like the ordered loves, right? And then you described sin as, well, disordered loves, and then described humanity as being turned inward, which is like Martin Luther, homo incurvatus is like his whole thing.
Yep.
And so as we consider that, like what's interesting to me is that our culture actually encourages a lot of like inward self-awareness, self-reflection, self-care. So how do we tell the difference between like healthy self-awareness and the kind of inward curvature that is like feeding my own desire?
Good question, man. And it's an astute observation about where culture, and here's what the deal is culture is responding to a negative behavior from the generations before it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Don't just stuff your feelings, just work, pull up your boots, just don't cry. Boys don't cry, There's all of this stuff that culture embraced for a long time that was really unhealthy.
And that's not even getting into like issues like race and sexuality.
Oh, totally. That's just
like those are just
baseline things.
Yeah.
And then you throw in some of these other more complex like issues of, sin issues there. And it's a mess. And so I think culture's response to that is this kind of like the swinging the pendulum the other way of being so hyper attuned to like your interior person that you there's all these, I watch all these like memes about like Gen Zers at work, and there's one of like a guy.
They do that? I'm just kidding.
This guy has like this big thing of ketchup and he's trying to transfer it in the little thing, and the Gen Zers like opening up like ketchup packets and squeezing this thing, and the boss comes over and tries to show him how to like undo the lid and just pour it in, and the Gen Z gets offended and he acts like he's gonna quit,
Puts his hood over his head?
He puts it over his head and he's like, okay, like I'm done, and then the boss is like, no, and he like gives him the packets back, because they become so sensitive, and that's a problem too, is because they're so inward focused in themselves,
Right.
and it's like this, and the reality is it is not about thinking of yourself more or thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less. And so the idea of Christianity is to remove your ego from the equation and allow Christ to be Christ. And so we have to know ourselves so that we know where we need Christ, right? Like that's the deal, is we become in touch with our interior person so we can offer that person to Christ, not just so we can just stay in there.
So that'd be the good of self-awareness, right? Is like being able to like almost name the things that are going on internally,
be honest,
so that we can offer it to Christ.
Yeah.
So then, the converse is when, self-awareness takes control. What does that look like, as opposed to just being able to name things and offer it to Christ? What's the bad version of that?
Another comedian, I think I've told this before, this guy's like, he's like, man, Gen Z is like the most aware generation ever, but they don't do anything about it. And he's like, man, I'm filled with anxiety. And they're like, he's like, well, what are you going to do about it? He's like, well, I'm telling you, so you know how to work around it.
Right. Yes.
Like it's that whole idea of like, and that's the deal, is like, I think, and this is where the groaning comes in. Groaning has an inclusion of understanding God's vision. So that's even for ourselves. Like God has a design for us, and learning what God wants for us is how we take that introspection. And so the bad is when it just, you know a whole bunch about yourself, you go to counseling all the time, and you maybe start to understand yourself better, but you have no vision for a new self, for what it looks like to become
to be healthy, unhealthy.
And so what we do is we have all these unhealthy boundaries, and so we place all these boundaries in our lives so that we don't ever have to deal with the real pain or brokenness that's inside of us, instead of setting boundaries in our life so that we can actually heal and become whole and be able to handle harder situations in our life.
We label things we don't like as toxic.
Yep.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
But we create a rationale that makes everything else the bad guy.
Correct.
And instead of having...
these days, everyone's a narcissist, or everyone's toxic, or everyone, just because they said something I don't like, or they believe something I don't believe, or they don't...
I'm going to cancel them.
Yeah,
I'm not going to associate with
or
that
person. I'm going to label them so I can dehumanize them, so I can write them off and ignore them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's powerful. And, I was thinking about this, in my 20s, I think it was, I'd go to these different conferences or different, whether, and this could be true in work, because I was working in like the secular workplace, or it could be true in Christian circles too, but people would talk a lot about like having a life mission. And I just was like, and I finally, I want to say 2-3 years ago, like it just became really clear to me that my life mission is to help others experience the wholeness that I've found in Jesus. It's really simple. Like that's it.
Yeah.
And so it gives me handlebars for one, seeing the brokenness in myself and like giving it to him so that I can be whole, because I think that's a daily renewal. It's not just like, oh, well, 3 years ago I was made whole and now I'm good.
Yeah.
But then also it's the invitation to invite others, one, to see that in me, but two, to experience it for themselves.
Yeah. That's cool. And that is an alignment with God. You know what I mean? Like when we can begin to align ourselves with the way that God envisions the world, that's when we start really finding our purpose, and even going back to that passage where we start understanding what God's perfect and pleasing will is, that's a real transformation. That's where real transformation begins to happen in our hearts.
Yeah, that's good. All right, last one for me, because I wouldn't live up to the name sex pastor if I didn't ask.
I did mention sex.
You did mention it. And it was interesting because you grouped it in as appetite.
Yeah.
With like hunger, safety.
Yep.
And
that comes from like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
That's like
Yes. But what I've found is a lot of Christian thinkers are hesitant to call sex an appetite because it reduces something like beautiful and relational to something that's purely biological. And so I'm interested, like, how do you hold those two realities together? Or, do you think limiting sex as appetite is like appropriate, or is there something broader, a broader distinction between the two?
Yeah.
Stumped them, guys.
No,
I'm just kidding.
It's funny. In my mind, it's funny. And this is the problem with like knowledge too. Sometimes you know too much,
Yeah.
So you can't like get. But I'm thinking of Nacho Libre, who's like, you don't believe because you only believe in science, like kind of deal. Like, but if you're like, I just think that. Biologically, it's proven, like attraction and sexual desire, and this is all a biological response to our wiring, right? Which is also like, I think that I think the answer to your question is one of those is like yes, it's this like reality that God has given us, like as a gift that's outside of ourselves, but it's also this biological thing that He's wired within us that we have to take into consideration. But yeah, we do have a primal desire for procreation. And that's just a part of like what it means to be a creature, in God's creation, And so there's a biological need for sex. Like,
and I think it's actually helpful to point that out. I think a lot of times we, in the Christian sphere, like to, like kind of de-emphasize that, and because obviously sex is much more than just that.
Yeah. And I always hear people, Jesus never had sex, and he was single, and, I'm like, yeah, we're not Jesus. That was
right.
He was fully God and fully human. We're just fully human, so we're not fully God.
Tempted in every way.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that he didn't experience
temptation,
sexual temptation,
and desire,
which I'm sure people are like, blasphemy.
Yeah, totally. Totally, we don't. The Bible doesn't say, but we would assume that he's tempted. He's tempted in every way that is common to man.
It's at a minimum inferred,
totally,
just in the sense that tempted in every way,
totally. And this is what's helpful about this conversation is, I hold to what I would call a biblical or an orthodox sexual ethic, right? Mm-hmm. So I believe in heterosexuality as God's design, and I believe in gender as two genders. Like I hold to an orthodox view, but when I'm counseling someone who's struggling with like same-sex attraction or gender confusion or some of these things, when I'm asking them to like lay down their attraction for a season with Jesus to really discover what it's like, I know that I'm asking them to lay down a huge part of actually our biological design.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we can have conversations of brokenness, wholeness, like all those types of things. But like when I'm talking to a single person, right, and I'm telling them to be content in their singleness, it's different because I'm asking them to lay something down that I'm not laying down as a married person, in those things. And so it helps me to have a lot more compassion and deep understanding about what's driving them and their decisions for connection, because I do believe it's such a strong part of our identity.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw the beginning of a reel, and I didn't watch it because I thought it was weird. But just it was, the premise was like, this changed the way I talk about Jesus. And the first line of it was Jesus ever addicted to meth? And I had to respond, no. And so something was happening, because I was actually interested, and I couldn't finish it, and I could never find it again. But I think. What I think about that is Jesus didn't experience everything we experience.
Right, every single dot.
That is not the same thing. But Jesus experienced the human condition. Jesus was tempted to bury his feelings in something else, tempted with escapism. Yeah. Clearly we're talking about Jesus in the wilderness. Yeah. Escape your hunger. Just make some bread out of these rocks.
Yeah.
So not every experience, but the human experience.
Yeah. And that's the appetite, the ambitions, and the affections. I love that framework just because I think it encapsulates the whole of the human condition. We can find our temptation categorized in one of those places, even if it doesn't matter if you're addicted to heroin or you're addicted to gambling or you're just addicted to work or you know what I mean? It falls in one of those categories of what's driving, what's the love behind that, in there. And so, I think it's important to do that. And I also categorize it in there too, is because I try, and we talk about this a lot, I'm trying to rehumanize our brokenness and see us as God sees us, because a lot of our brokenness, and we talk about this all the time, is just trying to get real needs met in wrong ways. Mm-hmm. And when we can admit that we have real needs, and maybe we're not always the best person at figuring out the best way to get our needs met, then maybe we'll open ourselves up to God.
Well, and honestly, I think when we demonize brokenness, it makes the church inaccessible.
Totally. Yeah.
That's when people look for meaning outside of the church.
Yeah. And God unmerciful,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's once, when the Bible goes out of the way to communicate the opposite, what should astonish us over and over again is the mercy and grace of God. That should astonish us over and over again. That.
It's good. I think it's time for a low-key obsession.
Let him cook. It's time for David's low-key obsession.
Ooh. Or do you have a cultural moment? I surprised you. You forgot.
You surprised me. I totally forgot. Hey, here's what I will say. My low-key obsession is Easter's coming.
Yeah.
And it is a time of year where people who normally don't go to church are willing to go to church for an Easter event. And so my low-key obsession right now is invite neighbors, invite coworkers, invite cards. This last weekend, we have one more weekend where we're going to gather before Easter. And so
with kids on stage.
It's going to be amazing. But just I challenge our community to take some risk with some relationships they've been building this year. And this is a great time to cash in on some of those relationships.
Absolutely. And I think the word that comes to mind for me right now is openness. Mm-hmm. People have an openness to Easter that they might not have on a Sunday in February.
Yep.
And I don't know what it is, but it's a real thing. And man, is there a risk? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Absolutely.
Totally.
Especially.
And it's not just the Easter that they're more willing to do. It's what we talked about last week with the longing for the sacred. There's a spiritual hunger in America right now.
An openness.
It's openness to Jesus. And that might not be like to like Baptist or Methodist or Lutheran or doctrine or you know what I mean? But there is an openness to God that this makes a great opportunity. And it has less to do with like we're gonna sing good songs and I'm gonna preach a hope-filled message and we're gonna have Easter egg hunts and like do stuff like that. But when people come into this place, there is God's presence that is thick and
tangible,
tangible, and so people just will experience that, and it will God will sink His beautiful, loving claws into people's hearts in the ways that He does.
Yeah, I think weird analogy, but we were up in Loveland area, and we took our sons to just go let's go to CSU. I want you to see a college campus. And see, if it does anything, right? And I knew it would do something. I didn't know if it would spark, a vision for going to college. Maybe it would just be cool. But I knew it wasn't going to be benign.
Yeah,
especially
just
for
neutral.
our older son.
Yeah.
Who's
closer. Yeah,
right. And so I'm. And sure enough, it seems to spark some openness and some different conversations and things. And not necessarily about CSU, but just the concept of college.
Yeah.
And I go, dude, people aren't going to come here and it be benign.
Right.
It's going to do something. We can't control what it does.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of that's some of that mystery.
Yeah.
Right? Of how God does what He does and how God reaches people and His Spirit moves and there is some personal responsibility on the part of the person who comes, but God's not going to do nothing.
Yeah. And I promise you, nobody's going to hate it. What I mean?
Yeah.
They might not be I'm not into this or, whatever. But God will do something in their hearts, even if they act like that. But nobody's going to be like, oh, I can't believe you subjected me.
We're not friends anymore.
Yeah, totally. It's so.
Yeah, it's good. Good job on a surprised low-key obsession.
Yeah, it is. But
it is
real. All joking aside, it has been on my heart. I'm just man, this is a really good season for us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're excited for it. And a lot of planning and things going into it. It's going to be great. All right. #IRL.
#IRL. And if you don't know what that means, you must be old. IRL.
How do we do this?
Yeah, here's what I was thinking about is what if you spent 10 minutes a day opening up Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Okay, they call those the Gospels. We say the word gospel all the time, and what we mean is the good news about Jesus. The Gospels are the story of Jesus's life on earth. Mm-hmm. But what if you just opened up one of the Gospels and instead of looking for life's deepest answers or something to do, what if you just simply said two things? What is Jesus like? Mm-hmm. And what does He care about? What is Jesus like? And what does He care about? And you just you read for 10 minutes, you reflected on those two questions, maybe write a couple things down in a journal or on the notes on your phone or whatever, and what that's going to get you into is being more focused on Jesus instead of yourself. Just learning about the character and nature of who Jesus is. And that's how we begin a relationship of beholding instead of performing for Him.
Well, I think that's interesting because so often we go to the scriptures and we ask the question, knowingly or unknowingly, what does this mean for me?
Yeah.
How should I, change or live because of this? How should, but it's I.
Yeah.
It's very I focused, whereas this is no, who is He?
Yeah. And just let that. and make sure that before you ask any me questions, and this is Jesus patterns this in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The Lord's Prayer starts with that. Because that's where we all need to start. Now, we just take that kind of truncated. We could spend years just on that first half without ever getting to, give us this day our daily bread, forgive our sins as we forgive those who sin against us, like deliver us from the evil one, lead us not into temptation, deliver us from the evil one. We could spend years just focusing on the character and nature of who God is and what he's up to. And I think we would be better served, to be honest. Like, I think what we'll start to do is, as you see who Jesus is, that stuff will start spilling out of your actual life. Yeah. The way you treat your spouse, the way you treat your kids, the way you treat your clerk at your grocery store, the way you treat your coworker. Like, when you begin to see the heart of Jesus, you'll begin to, your heart will begin to change and become like his.
Well, yeah, because, it's interesting. I'm looking at the clock, but I was thinking about this when I was listening to the sermon, and I've shared this that I've spent a lot of time trying to just assess my level of trust for God. But what the message made me think about is that the wrong question? Not a bad question,
right? Yeah,
but that can be, and I have sunk into this at different points, very utilitarian. Do I trust God to provide for me? Do I trust God to do this for me? Do I trust God? Is God the magic genie on the lamp that I need him to be? And we can get so fixated on that when we are only considering trust.
Yeah.
But when we are beholding him and we have this beautiful synergy between love and trust, because I recognize his love for me, I can trust him.
Yeah.
And it gives me the space to not only trust him, but to love him in return.
Yeah.
That, I think, is I don't know, something about what you were saying was just reminding me, don't make this all about God meeting your needs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I almost think it's better to assume we don't trust God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know I don't. That's why I keep asking the question.
Just be honest. And I think it's that honesty where you begin, once you see who Jesus is and how much he welcomes brokenness into his sphere and life, light and all that, we could just, what I hope it produces just a sense of being a lot more honest with God about where we really are at, instead of trying to white knuckle. I already know my heart's filled with X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? It's and it's just God, just be honest and then just gaze at who Jesus is, and it changes you. And we know this. I know there's seasons where I'd stare, at my wife and I'm just in love with her, and I stare at my kids and I'm beholding their presence, and in those moments, my heart grows bigger and more affectionate for them in those moments. And so I think our relationship with God is no different. He's just not right here in flesh and blood, and so we have to do that some way.
I don't think it is less accessible, but it feels
less accessible for sure.
Accessible.
Yeah, that's why the Gospels are a great place to start. To just
you can see Jesus,
engage your imagination about him, and that's when you just start interacting with the right change agent.
Yeah, that's good. We did it.
We did it.
We made it. Almost. Man, we're almost all the way through Lent.
Yeah. We got one more week left.
One more week.
And then we got Good Friday and Easter. Excited about both of those.
Yeah. No, it's going to be great. And Good Friday, if you've come to Good Friday in the past, it's going to be a little different, but also a lot the same.
A lot the same, yeah.
So
a little blend of both.
Yeah, we're excited to just kind of unveil something, a new take on the same thing. And really just the invitation to reflect on what it is that Jesus did for us. Yeah.
That's going to be cool. That's a lot of beholding. We're going to do a lot of beholding Friday night.
So thank you for being here. You know, I realized something funny.
Huh.
Because I listened to last week's podcast. I never listened to the outro.
Yeah.
In the outro, it says like, rate, review, all the stuff that I usually say at the end.
You don't even need to say it.
I don't even need to say it. So I'm not going to say it, but just listen for another 30 seconds. You'll hear it all.
You're good.
We appreciate you guys. We love you. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to Centered. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend. You can listen to Centered on your favorite podcast platform or watch on YouTube. To learn more about Mosaic or connect further, visit us online at welcometomosaic.com. See you next week.